Good morning, friends. Welcome to my lanai. It's like having a little friend over for a little story and Bible time. And I love that. I love having people over to share what God has done in my life and what I've learned. So, welcome to our little lanai party and little story time with Amy Lynn. So I wanted to start with a Bible verse and then talk to you about how that's been relative in my life. So I'm in the NLT Bible, the version NLT, and then I have John 11, and it is John 11:14. So he told them plainly, Lazarus is dead. And for your sakes, I'm glad I wasn't there. For now, you will really believe. Come, let's go see him. Wow. So that is packed. That is Jesus talking to his disciples about Lazarus, Jesus' friend, the brother of Mary and Martha. And they had found out that he's sick, and they sent word to Jesus, please come, you will be able to save him. Okay. And sometimes in our life, circumstances have to be really dramatic, right? Really impossible looking. All things are possible with God, but they look impossible to the world. And God likes it like that. Jesus likes it like that, because it ends up showing how much power Jesus is and God is. It gives him the glory that in your weakest, darkest, hardest moments, that he can show off. So take heart, for I have overcome the world. And I've struggled with these dramatic moments in my life where, why did it have to be so bad? Why did it have to get so bad for you to show up, Lord? Why did I almost have to die? Like 2 days before I got help. Why did it have to get that dramatic? And I just hear God saying throughout my life, I'm glad I wasn't there. For now, you and everyone around you will really believe. Oh. What looks like a complete failure, a diagnosis that people are like, you're cooked, it's over, you're not gonna make it. And no one can help you. No one can help you but God. So I wanted to tell you a story. One of my stories. In 2020, I kept hearing the word brace. And it was early. It was really December of 19 through the next few months of 2020. Really 4 months. Yeah, 3 months. And I didn't actually know if it was from God, because I am the type of person that believes and believed that God wasn't going to scare me, and if it was something scary, that it was not God telling me, but it was the enemy. But I kept hearing it. Brace, brace, brace. And I worked for United Airlines, and I was a supervisor in pilot training. And if you know anything about that industry, or if you're going in for an emergency landing, that's what the flight attendants scream. And then they ask you all to scream it as you brace, brace, brace for impact. And guys, I was welling up with fear. I was like, whoa, wait, what? What are you telling me? Why are you telling me this? What is going on? And more news came out about COVID, and more news came out about problems in China and la la la, and I was just like, okay. And February, I got this like weird illness where I had a fever. It was only a slight fever, but I stayed home from work for about 3 or 4 days or whatever. And all of a sudden, I thought I was just coming down with something, and so I stayed home, and all of a sudden I realized that I had a golf ball size lump in my breast. Golf ball, like hard golf ball, okay. And I freaked out because I had been hearing brace, brace, brace. So I was like, are you kidding, Lord? I am in the best shape of my life. All I do is eat healthy. I am like living for you, God. What is happening? And I remember calling friends, and I have this beautiful friend, Cheryl, and I called her crying, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm freaking out. And she was one of my coworkers that sat next to me, and we had the greatest time. But she was like, Amy Lynn, I'll take care of it. I'll call our boss. You don't have to worry about anything. Just get to the doctor, do whatever. So I go, and it turns out that it's just a cyst that exploded overnight, and they were able to drain it, and no cancer. Okay. So I get through that, and I get, sewn up and from that biopsy. And then a month later, we go into lockdown. Okay. We go into everybody staying at home. We're now March 12th. And then over a 2-week period at home, I started feeling weird. And I really thought that maybe I was getting this thing called COVID. And I stayed at home while other people were starting to migrate back after those 2 weeks. Well, March 31st, I was on a Zoom call with my work team, and they were like, are you thinking you're gonna get back into the office? How are you doing? And I was like, I've had a mild fever for a couple weeks. I don't feel great, but I think I'm okay. I guess I could come back soon. Well, I ended up getting off that call, running to the bathroom. I had been on that call for a long time. Running to the bathroom, just like literally peeing, and all of a sudden, my back started cramping up. And I'm telling you, cramping up. And I'm like, what is happening? And then, I would go in the living room, and I like got on the floor, and it just kept coming, and the pain just got worse, and it just got worse, and it just got worse. So I ended up going upstairs, and my daughter was home and my son was home. Maddie was she was going to school online for her senior year, and then my son was not working at the time because we were all like, Colorado shut down. So I went upstairs and I was like, hey, will you just check on me soon? I'm not feeling very well, like my back is hurting. Can you just come check on me in a little bit? So I go in my room, and the pain starts shooting to max levels, and now I'm like in like a downward dog on my knees, and I'm like screaming. And Maddie comes in. My kids are very like good under pressure, good in a very stressful situation. So Maddie comes in, she's looking at her phone, and she's like, okay, tell me where the pain is. And she's like Googling, what does it feel like? What is going on? What else hurts? And I was like, I don't know. My back's on fire. I have no idea what's happening. And I had lots of fibroid cysts in my life and in my ovaries or around my ovaries. So I was just like, maybe it's like one popping and hurting me. And this is March 31st. This is day of shutdown. Hospitals closed for non-COVID reasons. Like if you don't have a COVID situation and you are not over 60, do not call me, do not call the doctor, do not come in, okay? So I was increasingly in more pain, and Maddie, she's like, maybe it's your appendix, maybe it's a cyst, maybe it's something. So I knew if it was my appendix, it was pretty serious, and I probably needed help. And yet I knew the situation we were in. So I have a weird way of, in dire situations, being like, well, I think I'm okay. I don't think I need to go to the hospital. So I told Maddie, okay, you know what, would it make you feel better if I I called my friend from high school that was a nurse practitioner? If I call her on FaceTime, would that make you feel better? So we called her, and she was walking us through, like, okay, what is your symptoms? Where's the pain? What are you experiencing? And I'm just trying to understand if I should go to the doctor or the ER. And all the while I'm like, I don't think I really need to go. Let's not be dramatic. So I am talking to her, and I'm like, when is that moment when I should worry? And she's like, if something else happens. And I said, like, throw up? Because I was just about to throw up. And now I went upstairs at 3, it's now like 6, and I start throwing up profusely as Maddie's holding my hair, and she lays her hands on my back, and she's like, Mama, you're burning up, Mama. You gotta go to the hospital, you gotta go. And I was like, no, I'm just gonna put out, how about I just put out like a prayer request on Facebook to my friends. So I put out a prayer request, and I'm like, guys, so can you pray for me? This is what's going on. I'm not feeling very well. I'm legit gonna, I keep throwing up, and I'm in like a 10 pain. And I get a message from my friend Brad, and he says, Amy Lynn, this is no joke. Like, this is worse than COVID. You gotta go to the hospital immediately. And I had been in prayer with Brad over the years about his daughter and his family. And so I was listening. I heard him when he was speaking, and he's like, you need to be seen immediately, call an ambulance. And I was like, well, I don't, and now we're like talking on the phone, and I'm like, Brett, I don't think we need to get that dramatic. My kids can just take me to the hospital like 5 minutes away. I don't need an ambulance to come get me. I don't even know if this is anything. And he was like, it's something, get to the hospital. And I said, would it make you feel better if I can be a pain? Like, going to the hospital is my last resort. So I said, would it make you feel better if I like leave a message for my doctor, even though it says don't leave a message unless you're 60 and experiencing chest pains? Like, my doctor had already said, do not leave a message here, okay? So I said, would it like help if I just left them a message to see if they think I should go to the hospital? And he was like, yeah, sure. Because a doctor had to call the hospital at this time. Like, this was 2020. They had, the day that Colorado shut down all hospitals, they had to call an emergency in and say, you have to see this person, okay? So I got a call back, and the doctor was walking through like my symptoms, and he was like, yeah, I think you need to be seen. You probably have an appendicitis. So I listen. Okay, he's calling ahead. I'm looking at my kids, and I'm like, T, can you just drop me off? And because he couldn't go in with me, no one could go to the hospital with you at that moment. So, and I had, remember, like I was having some like breathing stuff over the last 2 weeks, and a mild fever of 99, and now my fever is spiking, and I didn't know if I was getting COVID. I didn't even know what COVID was, but I was worried. So I start getting ready, and Maddie's putting on my shoes, and the pain is subsiding, right? And I look at Maddie, and I'm like, do you think I really should go? Do you think this is like too dramatic? And she was like, Mama, this is not you being dramatic. You've been sick for 2 weeks, and you are in excruciating pain and throwing up, and you're on fire. You have to go to the hospital. So I was like, okay. So my like worst feeling is at the hospital, and they look at you and they're like, you're fine. Why are you here? Okay, so I didn't want that. So especially during this event we were in, pandemic stupid stuff. So I get dropped off, and Taylor, he stays in the parking lot for a couple hours, like few hours. He can't come in. We don't live that far from the hospital, but he didn't know if I was coming home right away, so he stayed there. He's amazing, but he stayed there. So they get me in, but they put on hazmat suits, and they act like I am someone with leprosy, okay, because I have other symptoms along with this belly symptom. So they're like all freaking out in their hazmat suits, like don't want to come near me. These are the doctors and nurses, okay? And they're getting me in for tests very quickly. CT scans, the whole gamut. So I do a CT scan, and it was pretty dramatic. I was, thankfully they gave me meds immediately, like for pain, because I was screaming in pain. And then I couldn't really lay down, you guys. So doing the CT scan was not very comfortable. You know, they're like lifting me off of my bed with sheets, placing me back down. I'm screaming, like the whole thing. So I do the CT scan, and the tech in there says, do you experience like cysts a lot? Or, and I was like, oh yeah, I already had a cysts and tumor. Like I already had things at 38 with a partial hysterectomy. And so I was like, yeah, I definitely have problems. So they were like, oh, okay. So I get back to my room, and the ultrasound tech comes in, and he's great. He's like, well, I see why you're in a lot of pain. And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, I just need to see if there's like blood flow going through this thing. Do you see this thing? Like, this is big. I'm like, okay. So he was like, you did the right thing coming in here. This is a big deal. I'll get a doctor in here, and they'll look at your results and all of that. Well, now it's around 11, and a few hours later, and I have a doctor come in, and they were like, okay, so all of our specialists, because of COVID, are not here, but we're gonna call in a gynecologist immediately to look at your stuff. So there's clearly a mass in your belly, and we don't know what it is. So we're gonna call them in. So just like, I'm like, my kid is 21, or I think he was like 21, 22 years old, sitting in the car in the parking lot. Should I send him home? Am I gonna be here a while, or should he stay? And they're like, oh, no, like, send him home. You're gonna be here a while. We got some stuff to figure out. And they call in a doctor, and she comes in. And I've had these moments with doctors in hospitals, and they're very traumatic. And so I knew the look. And she was like, so I've called in an oncologist surgeon, and he is going to get in contact with you, and we are going to move forward with an emergency surgery. And I was like, okay, so what are we talking about? And she's like, we aren't sure. And the problem is we see a mass, and it's like the size of a big grapefruit. And we can't tell how bad it is. We can't tell if it's what it is, but we think it's a tumor, and we're just not sure about whether that is that there's another problem. It could be, worst case scenario, an ovarian torsion, where your ovary enlarges, and you also have a tumor, and then they start twisting up, and worst case scenario, it will cut off your blood supply. I was like, oh, okay, great. So I might have cancer, and I might die very soon. Okay, all right, great. And they said, here's the thing, we can't even do surgery. Legally, we can't do anything right right now without approval. And because you came in here with a fever and trouble breathing, we have to do a COVID test before we take you into surgery. And it has to be negative in order for us to do the surgery. And those tests are taking about a week. And I was like, a week? Okay, well, that is great. And it gets worse. It gets so much worse. So they end up like, I had told Taylor, go home, I'll call you tomorrow. I should be done around 8:30 in the morning, 9, whatever, and they're gonna release me. They're gonna release me, and they're gonna have that surgeon call me every day to make sure I'm alive and manage my pain. It's like, oh, okay. I have a 17-year-old child that is trying to do school online her senior year, and I have a young son and no husband, and no one can come help me because we're on this shutdown and the whole world's scared. Okay, so even us. So it's just gonna be them and me and God. Okay. So about 5:30 in the morning, this very rough nurse comes in her hazmat suit, and she looks at me and she says, "You gotta go." And I was like, "Excuse me?" She's like, "We're not running a hotel here. You gotta get out of here." And I go, the doctor told me that I won't be released till like 9. So I sent my kid home to go to sleep. It's 5 in the morning. And she said, "So, I'll call you an Uber." And I was like, "What is your problem? Do you know what they just told me?" She's like, "What? You want some soft nurse that comes in and feels sorry for you? This is COVID times. You need to get out of here. You wouldn't want an ER nurse that had feelings." And I was like, "They told me that I probably have ovarian cancer and I could die at any moment if it's an ovarian torsion. And you want to send an Uber to take me home during COVID shutdown? Because you don't want me here in case I have COVID as well?" And she was like, "Exactly." And I was like, "You need some bedside manners, chick. I cannot believe you're treating me like this in such a scary time." And she was like, "Yeah, I'm not worried about what you think of me." And I was like, "Okay." So I called Taylor at 5 in the morning and I said, "Come get me. I'm not taking an Uber home with some stranger right now. I got enough problems. Thank you." So I went home, and for 4 more days, 6 more days, I was at home dying. I didn't even know it. I didn't even know it, but I knew it. I remember I had a dog, Bella, and she would just lay with me, and I was heavily medicated on pain meds. And my very kind, loving friends that meant well, you know, all over Facebook saying, "Oh my gosh, you're gonna get addicted to pain meds. Oh my gosh, I know people that had stuff like this and they lost their limbs." And guys, I was like, oh my God, I'm just trying to survive here. I hear God saying I'm gonna be okay. I kept hearing God saying I'm gonna be okay, and I was videotaping this journey, you guys, and I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. I was like drugged up, and I was barely surviving. And my kids were having to watch this, okay? And the drama. I would be laying down, and all of the sudden I'd have to go to the bathroom, but I had such a big thing in my belly that the second that Taylor would get me out of bed, I'd just pee myself. And then he would go to Maddie's room and say, "You're up, go shower her, dress her, and I'll put her back in bed." And then the doctor would call every day. "How's your pain? Glad to hear you're alive." I'm like, thanks, I guess. And I had all of these voices coming from every direction, right? But there was this peace within me. It was so weird. I knew that it looked bad. I knew it looked like I was not gonna make it. I knew people were freaking out that I was gonna die. And I knew it didn't look possible for me to make it. There was no doctors or hospital. I should have been hospitalized. In normal world, you would have had surgery within hours, okay, of this discovery. Not 6 days later. So the second day I was home after the ER visit, I didn't want to wake my kids. They had been up so much, and my dog really wanted to go outside and eat about 5 in the morning. And she was begging me to go outside. So I climbed down the stairs barely, and I get down there, and I'm like not well, and I get her, I just open the door. Just leave it open, and I pour her some food and water, and then I start to crawl up the stairs, at which time I collapse, and I'm like slither, like barely. I don't want to wake my kids. I know this sounds ridiculous. I didn't want to wake them. They had been through so much. I didn't want to wake them, okay? So I get back to my room, and I call my friend Brad later that day, and I'm crying about all the people that are sending me like fear-mongering texts, and they're from my work, and I know that they meant well. I know they were scared. I was scared, but that was not the voice I needed to hear at that moment. Even if it was true, I didn't need it. So I told Brad what I had tried to do that morning, like go down the stairs and come back up, and he was like, "Amy Lynn, I have been through this with my daughter. You cannot leave your room. This is not a time for you to get out of bed. You can't do the things you think you can do. You are on bed rest. No more. No more. I know you don't want to wake your kids, but you have to. I know you don't want to do this, but you have to. I know you don't want to just sit here, but you have to." And he was like, and the people at work, I will tell them to go through me. You don't need all these negative people telling you you're gonna die, you're gonna lose limbs, you're not gonna make it, you're gonna be a drug addict. You didn't need it. I'm gonna take care of it. So he does that. So Wednesday I go in, I'm home, and on Saturday, the breathing. Guys, I did not know what was happening. Okay, but I was like, I couldn't really breathe, and I have those videos, and it's awful to watch, but I'll let you watch. Because the whole time I felt God tell me, record it. Record it. You need them to see this. You need them to see how bad this got. Because they're not going to believe it unless they see it. There's no doctors here to save you. So if you are saved, it's going to be me. It's going to be me. It's not going to be a surgeon. It's not going to be the nurses that save you. It's going to be me. And your story matters. So tell it, because it's ridiculous and it's insane and people won't believe it, and you have to tell it. And in the moment, by faith. So I did. I recorded the awful truth of where I was at. And during that time, Maddie was still trying to go to school and sad that, things were canceling. Big senior moments were canceling. And my heart was breaking for her, and my heart was breaking for her, the weight of watching me die in front of her, and how scary that was for them to watch. But I know that they had to watch. I know that they had to see it. I know that they had to be the ones to witness it. And as crazy as that sounds, as crazy as it felt, and as sad as it is to this day, I know that God needed them to see it. So that Saturday, I was not doing well. I was struggling to breathe, and I really wasn't sure if I had this COVID thing on top of this other thing. And my great friend Tammy had given me this Miracles Happen blanket the year before, and it was the year before was when my precious friend Jill was dying of cancer, and she was a director at United, and she meant so much. She still means so much to me. She meant so much to me, and I watched her die, and I was devastated. And Tammy had given me that Miracles Happen blanket the year before, and Jill was 49 when she died, almost 50, and I was 45 at the time, and or at this time when I was putting this blanket on me a year later. And I remember like texting a picture to Tammy, like, I got the blanket on to go to bed, and I don't tell her I'm not well, and I'm not breathing very well. And a lot of it was because I didn't understand what was going on, but also I didn't want to be dramatic, and I didn't, she was checking on me, but she wasn't. She was in Chicago, and she didn't know exactly what was going on. So I ended up going to sleep that night, and I woke up in the middle of the night, I think around 1:32 a.m., screaming. And what I know in my soul happened was I stopped breathing. For how long, I don't know. But I know there were angels in my room, or at least one in my room, and I screamed because something whacked me back on my back. Like pushed me up and whacked me, and I sat up and I was like, ah! And I caught my breath, and I looked around, and I was by myself. And I looked around, and I looked around, and I was like, wait, what? What just happened? And I realized I stopped breathing, and that an angel had whacked me awake. And I believe with all my heart that was Jill sitting at my bedside. I'll believe it until I'm standing with her in heaven. Okay. So I call Tammy the next day, and I'm like, you will not believe what happened. You will not believe what God just did. And she was like, Amy Lynn, I was up all night. I was in my prayer closet at like midnight. I woke up and I was like, I didn't know why, but I was just like praying in my closet on my face for you, and I didn't even know why. I didn't even know how, like, what was happening. And I was like, Tammy, you released angels to me. You released angels to me. I just had an angel experience. I didn't see them. I could not see them. I felt them. I felt Jill's presence. I got whacked and no one was there, and I screamed to take a breath, but there was no one around. And I was like, your prayers released angels to me. She's like, oh my gosh, I had no idea what was happening. I just had this prompting that I had to pray for you. And I was like, oh my gosh. I said, I wore your Miracles Happen blanket, and I just like was praying over it. And that blanket is so special because the people that make it in, I think, Illinois, they like made it and prayed over every moment of making that knitted blanket. Okay. And I still have it, and I still use it. And I was like, oh my gosh, God just saved me. I'm gonna be okay. God just saved me. On Monday, I had the surgery, and it was as bad as you think, but not as bad as you think, because it wasn't cancer. They didn't find any cancer. They had to pull things off of my colon. They had to scrape all of I had an ovary this big, a tumor this big. They had flipped over and over and over, and they were cutting off my blood supply, and they were pulling all my organs with it. I am sitting in front of you, living and breathing fine today. I watched the miracle sounds like a very similar miracle that Jesus was performing in his ministry. And it was so applicable to my life, and he's still doing these miracles in people's lives. Are you watching? Are you looking around? Are you seeing? Do you feel them? Because he wants you to see them. And your life, like mine, might have to be so dramatic that your testimony, these moments where God saves you when there's no other way. There's no other way. It's impossible. I'm at home. I'm dead. I'm dead. I stopped breathing. I know I did. I didn't go to heaven. I didn't have that experience. But I definitely woke up to angels in my room. So I want to encourage you. God's still doing miracles today. When it looks impossible, listen to the voice of God. Don't listen to those hecklers, because their fear is their problem. Listen to the voice of God. And if you need help with that, I did a video about hearing the voice of God. Go watch it. I had so much fun today to tell you this story about what God did. What God did and how many people watched. I don't know how many people are still watching. Like, I remember that day when she was almost dead and something happened, and oh my gosh. And it's sad because I wish Jill could have been in that room with me alive. I really do. I feel terrible for her children that have to live without her. She's special. But heaven needed her more, I guess. That's all I can think. She's so young. Heaven needed her more. It was her time. I don't understand. I don't understand why we had to live without her. I don't get it. I don't. She changed my life. She changed a lot of people's lives. I don't get it. I don't get why I lived and she didn't. I don't get it. But I'm grateful. I'm grateful while she was here, and I'm grateful for what she's done in my life. And I still feel her with us here. So I wanted to just come on here and tell you another little story of how great God is, even when it looks impossible. May God bless you and keep you and turn his face towards you in favor, and may blessings rain down on you.